G'day guys, Solid here. Hope you're all doing well and welcome back to another episode of Adventure News for April of 2025. As you can see, slightly new setup. I'm finally getting myself organized. Audio is still going to be pretty piss poor because I'm in a tin can, but we will get there, I promise. Lots of great stories to get through as well. Royal Enfield have been caught out testing a very production-ready version of the Himalayan 750. Yes, you heard that right. KTM have also been caught out testing their 690 Rally. Triumph have also got spy shots leaked of their more off-road capable version of their Scrambler 400X. And lastly, I want to talk about Charlie and Ewan riding classic motorcycles 10,000 miles around Europe. Very exciting stuff. Let's just get straight into it. So starting at the back, we can see the rear rack looks awfully familiar. The old Himalayan 450 here looks like it has an identical rear rack to the Himalayan 450, which is good news. Plenty of mounting points and lots of great spots to strap luggage to straight off the dealership floor. Always nice to have. It also looks like you've got standard luggage mounting there for hard luggage, so a couple of pannier cases on each side. It looks like they can be locked directly into the bike. Production version, I'd like to see those in black though, because they do stick out like dog's balls if you ask me at the moment. Very close to it is the high routed exhaust, a must if we're looking at adventure bikes. The wheels we've talked about, it's obvious they're a 1917 wheel combo. To my eye, they look like they're tubed wheels. To me, the aesthetics, it looks like a mini Norden without the decals on it, with that round headlight, wraparound wind protection on the body there and the high windscreen. I think it's all going to serve well to be a really nice adventure tourer. This is not going to be a hardcore off-road bike. This is just going to be something that you can putt down the green lanes, get through some tricky stuff if you spider leg it and you've got patience. Now the Himalayan 750, as Rushlane are calling it, are saying that the projected weight will be somewhere around 210 to 220 kilograms. At a loose guess, I would err more towards the 220 kilogram mark, which isn't egregious for what we should call a middleweight adventure bike. This isn't, again, going to be ridden hard off-road. And that extra weight is also going to be nice out on the open road in windy conditions. It will lend itself to stability. The rider triangle is also classic adventure bike, exactly what I want to see. Nice and neutral, upright. It'll be interesting to see whether they make the seat any more comfortable than the Himalayan 450, because the seat on this for an adventure bike is pretty piss poor. So I'd love them to do a little bit of work to make this 750 seat more comfortable, especially as it skews more towards adventure touring, when you tend to spend less time standing up. Now this is where it gets interesting, because the age-old internet debate is this an upgraded 650 with slightly different cooling fins and it's just cosmetic changes to improve the cooling on the 650, given that it's now going to have an off-road application? Or is this a brand new engine? But Rushlane have gone out on a limb and said unequivocally, this is a 750. According to their sources at Royal Enfield, this is basically a ground up redesign. This isn't just a bored out 650. This is actually an entirely new design engine, although it does look very cosmetically similar on the outside to the 650, which is really interesting that they went that route rather than just boring out the 650 and saying job done. So I'd love to know what the reasons were behind that. My guess is maybe emission standards. With Euro emission standards getting tighter and tighter, obligatory eye roll, that means that manufacturers are having to continually update their engines. Now they've also got projected power specifications as well. So they haven't given their source or how reliable it is, or whether this is legitimately Royal Enfield leaking the news. But Rushlane, as I said, are generally fairly accurate with Royal Enfield stuff, and they seem like they have a direct pipeline. So I'm inclined to believe these guys more than most people. So this could be pretty accurate. Of course, it could end up all being bollocks, but I think as far as Royal Enfield news, Rushlane, this could be fairly accurate. So keep that in mind, which is 50 horsepower and 60 Newton meters of torque. Now that could be more, it could be less, but that might be a bit of a shocker to you, because realistically, that's only 3 horsepower more than the current 650. But it is a decent dollop of torque more. You're getting 8 Newton meters more of torque, which will really go a long way. So with that mild improvement being the case, I think it was probably Euro emissions that led them down this route to start with, because that means they can pass the higher emission standards but those emission standards are going to tax a lot of the performance gains that you get out of increasing the size of your engine. It's a tactic we have seen played to death by the Western market, so why not Royal Enfield as well? And aesthetically, it looks just as good as the 650 at a quick glance. It'll be interesting to see whether they roll out 750 versions of all of the current 650s they've got. It's looking pretty tasty if you're looking for a retro adventure tourer with a little bit of character, especially in a sea of lookalikes with the Japanese and European middleweight adventure bike market. Royal Enfield are also saying they might bring a cast wheeled version out, as well as a tubeless version of the spoke wheels at a later date. Other stuff that we've talked about before that sets this bike apart is it gets dual front discs. Now, the standard front disc on the 650s was decent enough. Having just ridden the bare 650, more braking power is always welcome. Now, continuing with this more premium feel, that is a different TFT screen. Importantly, you're likely to get cruise control on this bike, which will be a first for Royal Enfield. This bike behind me, the 450, has ride-by-wire throttle, but no cruise control. Expect to have the usual turn-by-turn navigation in the display, as well as Bluetooth connectivity. I myself, I'm not really a big fan of that stuff, but hey, if you're into it, it's got it. The other exciting thing here is that we're likely to see this displayed in basically its production ready form at the end of the year at the big motorcycle show. That's ICMA for 2025, which is coming up quick as ever. So I'm really excited to see this bike. Yes, it's not very hardcore off-road. Yes, it's not the lightest in the world, but that's going to be a benefit out on the open road, doing what this bike was designed to do, and that's be an adventure tourer. Love to know your thoughts. Are you a yes for this bike? Are you a no? Or are you waiting to see how this bike goes with its aesthetics? Chuck your thoughts down below. Righto, let's go to Triumph with the massively popular 400X, one of my most favorite bikes of 2024. Just so much charm and so much capability, and most importantly, in such an affordable package from Triumph. It really looked great, it sounded great, it went well. There really wasn't much to criticize other than the short gearing. The other criticism I had, of course, was really that there wasn't a dirt capable option. I would have loved to have seen spoke wheels, a little bit extra suspension travel to take it a little bit further off-road. And well, it looks like Triumph have listened at least on half of that. Anyone a sucker for yellow and black is going to be happy, because that looks like the color set they're going for this Triumph 400XE, let's call it, the more off-road enduro version of the two. The other upgrade you're going to get, and you can see front and center in that very blurry picture, is tubeless spoke wheels, which absolutely love to hear that. Fantastic addition. It's one of the things I think the Triumph 400X really needed to give it that off-road capability. Plus, admittedly, with these Scramblers, personally, I love the look of spoke wheels. It gives it that real classic look. You're also getting a full metal bash plate. I believe you could already get that out of the accessory catalog. I think a lot of this bike, as I talked about before in another episode, is going to be basically Triumph raiding the parts bin. This isn't going to be a revolutionized model of the 400X. It's just going to be basically a parts bin special with tubeless spoke wheels. The other thing we can't tell but looks to be certain is that there's no change in the suspension or likely increase in wheel size at all. So it retains its 19 front wheel, and it will also not get any increase in travel from the suspension or suspension tuned more for off-road, which is a little disappointing to see, but this will likely keep the price point down. Start it up. I've talked ad nauseum about all the specifications, but roughly it's looking like a 10-litre increase in fuel capacity. We're taking it to about 25 litres or 6.7 gallons of full range with the additional tanks. Yes, you will have to put fuel in each tank separately, just like you would an aftermarket solution on your KTM 690 Enduro R. Obviously, you've got the fairing and the windscreen as well to give it that rally bike look, but also it's practical. It keeps you protected from the elements. The other thing that a lot of you guys pointed out, and is a very good point, is if you've ridden the 690 Enduro R, it does have somewhat of a close ratioed gearbox, which is understandable. It's a dual sport. And a lot of you were saying you would really like to see a wider spread ratio gearbox. And I think that's a good call if KTM extended the ratios on this, given that it's likely to spend a little more time being an adventure bike than it is a proper dual sport like the 690 Enduro R. Now there's rumors going around that this will get the new engine, which apparently gets a little more horsepower, but also gets a little heavier. So that lends weight to the argument that this might have a little more power and maybe a little more weight. But these are all Reddit rumors and nothing substantiated. Most of the fairly well-renowned media outlets are all saying that this is getting the existing 690 Enduro R engine, so we will know exactly what the specifications are. I believe it makes roughly 74 horsepower. There are going to be no surprises when it comes to either the suspension with a WP Explore suspension that's already on the 690 Enduro R, as well as the engine and its performance. Just expect a 690 Enduro R with a windscreen, fairing, and dual tanks. That's basically the rub for this bike. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's exactly what the market needs. There's always been a subset of people on this channel continually asking me, is this bike ever going to come out? Well, finally, after years, I can say, look, KTM finally got off their butts and decided to do this. Let's just hope they survive this financial collapse to actually make the thing, but it's looking very promising. And some of you guys will also say, well, Solid, they've had the LR that Husqvarna made where you had the bigger front tank and you could go much further. Absolutely agree. And that bike did not sell very well at all, but it was lacking the fairing and the windscreen to make it more comfortable, to really give it that all-round package. So maybe that will be the difference, or maybe this will go down in flames just like the 640 did. Who knows? We'll soon find out. As for the price, it already takes about 1.5 kidneys to buy a 690 Enduro R, and given this has got more stuff bolted to it, I think I'm just going to call it, you're going to have to remove at least 2 of your vital organs or sell one of your children to afford this bike. But it's what KTM does. Ultimate premium off-road performance, that's what you're paying for. So if you got the money for it, power to you. They're a lovely bike to ride. Given what you get with the high-class suspension, the extra fuel tanks, the wind protection, and the off-road capability, there really is going to be nothing like this bike on the market. It could potentially be something very special. So will that justify the price? Time will tell. I'd love to know your thoughts. Good news for those of you who are followers and lovers of Charlie and Ewan and their exploits and adventures across the world on motorcycles, somewhat poorly some of the time. It's been a great journey to follow them through their first long way round, long way down, race to Dakar. Let's not talk about the electric Harleys. The less said about that, the better, I think. But they're back to redeem themselves, and now they're doing a 10,000-mile trip from Scotland to London, weaving their way through Europe. But the difference this time is they're on classic motorcycles, another love of mine. Ewan McGregor is on a 1974 Moto Guzzi Eldorado, and Charlie will be riding a bike that's very close to my heart, a BMW Airhead. This time it'll be an R75/5. But just getting these classic bikes that long of a journey through Europe is going to be an adventure itself. So I am all on board to see this and go for the nostalgic trip with them, because it's been years and years, decades that we've been traveling along with them. I know some people poo-poo them. It's in fashion to bash Charlie and Ewan, latte drinking cafe crowd. They spawn the GS crowd with their matching suits and going to cafes. But I really look at it at brass tacks. That series single-handedly got a whole generation of people out on BMW GSs and out riding adventure bikes, grow the off-road scene. Before that, it definitely wasn't the size that it is now. So they've done a lot for the off-road community. Apparently it drops May 9th, so I'm really looking forward to that. But I'd love to know your thoughts. How much influence did these guys have on your off-road journey? So that's it for this episode of Adventure News. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, don't forget to stay shiny side up.